Welcome to Music Forever, a podcast by the New Horizons International Music Association. I am Irene Cohen. Heidi Rochlin received a degree in music education from Temple University in Philadelphia and his graduate degree in trumpet performance from the University of the Arts. Alan has been an active freelancer in the Philadelphia region for over 30 years and has performed behind many top performers such as Johnny Mathis, Frankie Valle, Natalie Cole, The Temptation, and the Four Tops. He is a member in several community bands and theaters and especially enjoys performing with his wife Heidi and their 5 musical children. Alan is the director of the Ringgold New Horizons Band in Reading, Pennsylvania. He has conducted at the Cincinnati NHIMA Music Events in 2023 and 2024 and will be there in 2025 as well. He will also conduct at the NHIMA Mt Tremblant Music Camp in 2025 in Quebec. Heidi Rochlin comes from a very musical family. She received her Master's of Science at Temple University for secondary mathematics education. She has been teaching math, science, and music for many years. Her administrative work included curriculum supervisor for grades K through 12 in math, science, and music, superintendent of the Antietam School District, and executive director of the Allentown School District. Elle and Heidi share their love for music and their passion to teach music to all age groups. Well, hello, Elle and Heidi. Welcome to this podcast, and thank you so much for doing the interview.
Our pleasure.
We are here at the 2024 Cincinnati Music Event in a very hot Cincinnati with a heat wave, but luckily we are in full air conditioning, staying cool. And you are here as faculty, which has been absolutely wonderful. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, how did music get in your life? Al, do you want to start?
Sure. I heard some big band records in my house. We always had music, show soundtracks, movie soundtracks, and then I heard a Harry James record for the first time, and I was just smitten. So obviously I was going to pick the trumpet out. And I think my school, I went to the Philadelphia public schools, they only had French horns left. All the kids took all the trumpets. So I had to wait. It turned out it was my bar mitzvah present was my trumpet. So I really didn't get started where other kids started 4th grade. I really couldn't get started until I was, I guess, the 7th or 8th grade with my own trumpet. But by then I had gotten Cub Scouts and Little League all out of my system, so I was ready to just practice, and that was it. I was off.
Fantastic. So trumpet right from the start.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. How about you, Heidi?
I am actually the daughter of 2 musicians. So both of my parents were opera singers, conservatory-trained musicians. So I grew up with classical music and opera in the house all the time. So it was kind of in my blood from when I started. My dad, besides singing, was a trumpet player in high school. So there was a trumpet laying around. So I guess I was in 2nd grade when I picked it up, and he just started teaching me some things, and then I never put it down. So trumpet is my first instrument, but then I also play piano and organ. My mother was a church organist at different points in her career as well, so I kind of picked that up from her, and I do the same thing now.
So I assume you both got into band programs in school, and you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I was very fortunate. The Philadelphia public schools in those days did not have ringers. In other words, when we did shows or concerts, we didn't have some adults to come in and fill in spots. So I really gravitated towards the shows, the musicals really early. We had great string programs, and I got to see the real Broadway show books from 10th grade on. And that was just really still is my favorite type of playing. So that kind of continued on into college and professionally.
Very nice. And so you grew up in Philadelphia?
I did. Born and raised in Philadelphia.
Right. How about you, Heidi?
Similar. I had a band program. I went to public school, and we did band during the day. And then in addition to that, I would play in church with my mom, play along with the hymns and everything. And she would recruit me if there was a wedding. I would play trumpet on the wedding. I think I played my first wedding when I was in 7th grade. Terrifying experience. But we made it work. So yeah, we were always just playing and singing and making music happen. But I remember my band directors from elementary school and just loved them. 2 ladies who just did an amazing job with the band program, and it helped me to stick with it.
After school, you both chose to go into music programs. Were they music education programs or anything else?
For me, it was music education. Ironically, my private trumpet teacher said to me, he was a Curtis Institute grad, and he really said that you need to get an education degree and that he regretted not having that and just getting a pure performance degree. So I went that route, and I was very naive because I did not have a family that was in music. So I just kind of went with the flow and said, this is what you do. And I just loved being immersed by music in college, and that was it. I just kind of went through Temple. That was my course. I did music education, and then afterwards I went to the University of the Arts for grad work, and that was performance. So I did all the book cracking when I was younger, and that was great, and then I could just play in ensembles and perfect my craft when I was in grad school.
Where did you perform? I mean, did it lead to big performances?
It did. I was very fortunate. I got into the theater district in Philadelphia where a lot of things happening, a lot of theaters. There were still some recordings being done in Philadelphia for jingles that might be floating around still, and some backgrounds for TV commercials, things like that. So it was pretty lucrative, and I always could do, I guess the church wedding circuit was still around that we all trumpet players do. Big band jobs are a lot of fun, even rock and roll jobs, everything. It's kind of funny, but I should probably, full disclosure, you do everything when you decide to play the trumpet. So I've done the Mummers Parade. I've done Elvis impersonators, which is an amazing thing. Everyone should have to pay those dues. And all the ethnic jobs that a big city like Philadelphia would offer. Italian marching bands during feasts, processionals, Polish polka jobs, German bands, everything you could imagine. When I was still young, I played with the Philadelphia Youth Orchestra, and we got to go overseas. So I went to England, and that was great because they would spend at least 3 weeks overseas. And I also went to Germany the summer right before the wall came down in 1989. That was an amazing experience. I was very fortunate to be in a good place at a good time, good instructors.
I actually had the exact opposite experience as Al. I went into Temple as a trumpet performance major because my parents told me to never get a music education degree. My mother taught in the Philadelphia public schools for almost 40 years. By the time she retired, she was a music teacher. And she told me, don't ever be a teacher. Don't ever be a teacher. So I got a performance degree from Temple. You know, I was doing auditions and things like that, but I really wanted to teach. I really wanted to teach music. So I ended up through a series of events, but then going back and getting my education degree. So whereas Al started out in education and then went to performance, I started in performance and then went to education. And I am still in education. I taught for a long time and then went into administration, and that's what I do now. In the United States, you can only teach if you have a teaching certification, and I did not have one. So I taught in the Catholic schools and the private schools because they don't require certification. So I spent about 7 years teaching in a tiny little Catholic school. I taught general music, grades K to 8. I also did the band. I did the jazz band. I did everything. I loved it. It was great. Didn't pay any money, though. So that's when I decided to go back to school, get my ed degree. And then I ended up teaching in the Philadelphia public schools, just like my mother. I had an amazing experience there as well. So I did that for a while. You know, I kind of had the calling to go into administration. So I became a curriculum supervisor, and now I'm a superintendent of schools. It's kind of my mission to make sure that every district that I go to, the emphasis is more on the arts and music than on the athletic programs. I mean, they're all important. but there's been an imbalance in education for a long time. A lot of the men who have made it to the superintendency tend to come up through their like football coaches and they're passionate about that. So the arts have gotten a little bit of the shaft. So here I am. I came through with an arts degree. So now that is my passion, and I try to bring that up to speed in the districts I work.
Right. And is that the reason you were hired for this job? Was it actually a mandate of your school district, or is this something you want to push through?
No, it's definitely something I've come with, and it's come with some growing pains. People are not used to it. We're putting an emphasis on our students that go to district festivals for music and things like that, and we still celebrate our athletes as well. You never had heard about all of the kids doing wonderful things in music, and now it's kind of an even playing field. And I don't understand why one has to be more important than the other. Why can't they all be whatever kids are interested in? That should be celebrated.
What would you tell somebody who says, I don't think music or the arts are as important as sports? What skills does a person develop if they get arts and music education in schools?
The same kinds of things that you would develop on a sports team, you develop playing in a band. Teamwork, listening, working with others, putting a lot of practice into what you do and bringing your best for the sake of the whole ensemble or the whole team, all of those types of things. But then in my time teaching music and then being an administrator, when kids learn to read music, they're really learning a different language. And we all know the benefits of multilingual children. So it makes your brain work. And you actually told a story to me just the other day about a French horn player who was a pediatric surgeon. And what did he say?
So I played in something called the Doctor's Symphony. And it was a fun little thing to do. And I assumed it was for all these physicians in Philadelphia. It was started by a man who was the head of thoracic surgery at Graduate Hospital. And he invested in a big library. So all of his friends played in this. And I assumed it was just to kind of release all the pressure from day to day. And here it was, one of the French horn players was a pediatric cardiologist. So he was working surgeries on little hearts like this. And I thought, wow, what pressure. So I just happened to make the mistake one day and say to him, oh, this must give you a lot of relief from all that stress. And he looked at me almost insulted. And he said, are you kidding? This is what keeps me sharp. So apparently the necessity to get out his French horn and read music and concentrate at this different level, almost essentially admitting to me that if you do enough cardiological procedures, it's going to get old, and that playing a musical instrument is what's keeping your edge on. And I was amazed by that, and it stuck with me for decades after hearing that.
Did you go out in the educational field at all, Alan?
I did. I also taught in the private sector in Catholic schools for many years. I just didn't want to be stuck in a position where I'd have to give up playing positions. And between matinees and rehearsal days and things like that, you really couldn't have a full-time teaching job. So I opted to give up those medical benefits. It was a very busy time back in the late 80s, early 90s. So I had a good living from freelancing. And then I was just very fortunate that the teaching I did was, I guess you would say, in my own choosing. And they were great music programs. The folks worked really hard, and I didn't have to put up as much bureaucracy and red tape as a lot of teachers have to do when it's full-time. A lot of my students went on to play professionally and sat next to me. Now with the advent of Facebook, I see a bunch of my old students, and they just remember all their old times, because we used to do a lot of jazz band competitions and things like that, and that was really great for them. Most of the places that I did teach were in some really depressed economic areas in Philadelphia. And this, I didn't realize at the time, this was a really big deal to them to be a part of something like this and feel special. So, yeah, years later, I just got my warm fuzzies from seeing all my old students, and they have families, and their kids are doing jazz band competitions. They almost feel like they're my grandkids. I had to take an early retirement for some health issues that I was dealing with, and that was a struggle, but it actually brought me into the New Horizons family.
Yeah.
So if I could segue into that, Heidi and I were playing in the Ringgold Band in Reading, Pennsylvania, and I didn't know anything about New Horizons. I'd never heard of it. And the gentleman that was conducting the Ringgold Band at the time was also doing the local chapter of New Horizons. And when he retired to move to North Carolina, he came to me and asked if I would take it over. And I really missed getting in front of ensembles. I mean, I think I didn't realize how much I missed it till I started doing it, and the timing was perfect. Our youngest was just going to start school, so I was going to have all this free time. Heidi was real worried. She said, Alan, free time doesn't lead to good stuff. So she was really excited for me to have something to do. And it's been great. We have both a concert band on Wednesday mornings and a jazz band on Thursday mornings, and they both perform in public. It's just been absolutely great.
Fantastic. How long ago is that, Al?
That was about a year or two before the pandemic, so 2018. And it was just, we've had those dips, but now our numbers are up to 43. If everyone is there and healthy at once, it's there. It's a great age group to work with because when I give a directive, I don't have to worry about a bunch of kids coming up to me and asking me, what did you mean? Is this it? And answering the same questions over and over again. It's great. Adults, they're there. I'll make a lot of references to pieces of Americana that I believe should be in everyone's lexicon, and they're not. And they get it because they have gray hair like me. So I'm in hog heaven when I get to work with these ensembles. And one of my tenor sax players also played clarinet, but he plays tenor sax now. And his name was David White. And he was friends with someone that's not at the camp this year, but was last year. And he said, they're looking for directors. Would you be into doing something like that? I said, sure, throw my name out there. And lo and behold, last year Cincinnati worked out great. Love being able to do what I do with lots of different places. And
yeah, I'm just a big supporter of New Horizons. And it's just wonderful. I love so much coming to these camps. When you first said we're going to go to band camp, I was like, okay. It's like, okay, we'll give it a shot. And just fell in love with it. Really enjoy it.
Yeah, it means travel. It means meeting new people, new faculty. I get what do you get out of meeting other New Horizons conductors?
I just think it's great. Russ and I have a lot more in common just because we play. He's a player out there, and he's active in the jazz field, and I really enjoy playing that. So we just had a lot in common. I think our approaches are very similar. I love the relaxed approach that he has to things and keeps everything in order, and it's really structured, and yet it's a lot of fun. I think that everyone thrives with that. So we clicked immediately.
If you were to have somebody who approaches you from your own band or other bands and says, I've heard about these camps, what would you tell them?
I think it's great. I know as my personal experiences go, the overall New Horizons has been really enlightening to me because I'll have a rough day and I'll see, well, gee, these folks are a little older than I, and they're making it here. They're picking up instruments and they're keeping their brains healthy, and it's got to replace Prevagen somehow because playing an instrument's hard. So I think if they get a chance to go and meet other people at a camp, it would be great for them to do that because as successful as our particular chapter is, there is other places that, we have 100 and some people in our group, and we do this, and we have these other ensembles, and I think down the line, I'm already thinking, boy, someone should be there to start a string program for us in our area because we don't have that.
When you come to a camp like this, you're suddenly exposed to all these different programs. The learning curve is huge during these camps, and that alone, as a player, is so thrilling. Besides getting to know all of you and getting to play with different conductors.
I will add one more thing, too. This is a plug for Mary, because she had done some pieces when we were in Mt. Tremblant. And I brought them to my group. And it's just a great way to find out about literature. When you're still in the education field, they'll send you advertisements for lots of new publications, and I'm not privy to that anymore. So it was great. And at least two of the pieces that she did, we performed with our group, and they were phenomenal. Everyone really, really loved them.
If you have somebody come to you and say, I haven't played an instrument since I was 18 or 15, or I've never played an instrument, this is pretty scary to me, what would you tell them?
Well, I recommend the New Horizons. And again, I didn't know anything about this existed until then. It's unfortunate, but I'll try and do all I can to spread the word. But now that I know of it, there is no reason why you shouldn't be able to just play at a certain level that you remember, but enjoy that fun that it is. I mean, that's the big hook. I mean, we can talk about all the other things. If you're not having fun, why would you do it at this age? But it's really a healthy thing. I think seclusion's a big problem with people in old age, and the fact that they're getting out and seeing so many other people doing it. And if the environment's healthy and they don't feel like, oh, I'm under pressure to perform at a certain level, then it's great. And if they keep remembering that your best is good enough, they should succeed. I mean, I'm probably have the shortest tenure as far as a director with the New Horizons groups as the others. And I just noticed some people came in really tentative, and now they're just really part of it. And they feel part of it, and they're not just their instruments, but their whole aura. So I think it's great.
I'm just such a proponent of organizations like this and in general in the community, because it does connect you to a community when you get older. My parents, as they got older, they still performed. They were still in groups. They would go sing in a choir. They would, interact. It's so important to have that and to keep your mind sharp and to have something to go and do. One of the things that I love about our New Horizons chapter is our children, who also are musical. When they're not in school, sometimes they get to come and sit in on the New Horizons rehearsals. So you can there's a particular trumpet player who I think he's 90 years old, and he's playing trumpet next to our son who's 11, and they just click, and across the generations, and they have this common bond that is the trumpet. It would be great if all New Horizons chapters could have days like that. And I don't know if they do or not, but, go to an elementary school, and it's just... To see that, it's just so touching, and what each generation learns from the other one. Yeah.
And with the Ringgold Band, we do things called side by side and banding together. There are these things that we do with other schools. But piggybacking on what you said a while ago, I can't say anything bad about athletics, but there's a certain age where you just really can't do it, even if it's poorly. You can't go and play on a baseball team. You can't play on a basketball or football team. If you don't play tennis or golf, you hit that age bracket. This gentleman, Claire, who plays trumpet at a decent level, very competent at 90 years old. And it's just inspiring. And if someone were to see that and say, wow, I'll be able to do that the rest of my life. This guy's older than my grandfather, and look what he can still do. This has just been a feel-good week, as it always is.
Everyone's smiling. And
I mean, there were, I think even just the very next day, Monday, the end of Monday really hit me hard. I have to fully admit, I don't put in these kind of hours when I'm at home. And when I see everyone else doing it, they're not hiding out in their hotel room saying, forget it, I need a break. So drag myself down, turn on the steam, and here it is. And it's been great, as it always is.
Yes, we couldn't do this forever, but we could turn on the steam for just about 5 days so that we'll all collapse. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for your involvement in your local New Horizons groups and all the education and your gift of music that you've given to so many people through both your careers. And of course, for helping us out here during these camps. You've been an incredible asset to New Horizons and NHIMA. And we hope you'll keep coming and keep educating and keep playing with us.
As long as the invitations are there, we will definitely take them up.
That's wonderful. And thank you for doing this interview.
Thank you.
I would like to thank Al and Heidi Rochlin for giving this interview. If you would like to find out more about the Ringgold New Horizons Band in Reading, Pennsylvania, please go to www.ringgoldband.com. That is RINGGOLDBAND.com. Music for this podcast by Mary Riddle. Swag on. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Music Forever. If you are interested to be interviewed for this podcast, please email us at NHIMApodcast podcast@gmail.com. That is NHIMA podcast@gmail.com. See you next time.